So this was the holiest part of the abbey. The monks gathered here 8 times a day for their services. The footings of the choir stalls can be seen, and that's them bits here. Mass was celebrated daily at the high altar, which has been restored to its original position. And the gold and silver shrine of Rievaulx Abbey between 1147 and 1167 was close to the high altar. The pillars closest to the high altar have curtains showing the location of the tombs of important people who made gifts of land or money to the abbey, and chapels at the east end were used to say masses for people who supported the monastery. There's actually a picture here I can show you. So you can still see the stalls here. So these are the old choir stalls, Nim. So this is where they'd all stand to sing their hymns. And that's the original high altar. And the church served 2 separate communities. The Latin literate choir monks who sang 8 daily services used the eastern part, and the largely illiterate lay brothers who had much simpler services and served God with the labour used the western section. And the church was begun in the 1140s to the 1100s, but was later altered and extended. You can see both faces of the building from where I'm standing right now. Let me show you. I can turn around. This is one half, and that's the other half. The picture's doing much more justice to explain it to you. And the rich 12th century church was plain. It had rounded headed arches.
So when they first started, he wouldn't allow any adornment, any painters, any stained glass mirrors, air windows, any figures or anything like that. So it was very, very austere. So this was this part, and then gradually they began to get shift towards the art and the monastic things. But they were adorned with the figures from the history of that book and that manuscript. So they followed a set pattern and they introduced, and that's why you can see this older part. Look, if you see this older part ends with that bit there, and then you've got that new nave going forward. So
because this is the oldest part of it, isn't it?
So what happened was you had all the literate higher
in one section,
worshipping down there, doing the traditional 8 services
and then the rest.
And the ones that were labourers, because they were illiterate, they did fewer services down this end. Shorter services, so they didn't interfere with theirs. So they would have had to slot in between. So if you don't know,
see, this is from the 11th.
Illiterate, are you illiterate?
It means literate in Latin, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well,
obviously, but I mean,
because to know Latin, they would have had
the fluent in Latin were down there. The ones who couldn't understand it were here.
They could copy manuscripts. These were working on the land.
So these laboured in return, to earn their right to heaven.
Small chapels.
This one dates to the 1140s.
Now, when we went to Barcelona, their cathedral, in between their pillars were all these separate chapels, which is what this had. But when you looked in them, the amount of gold just in each one of these, and you were like, you've got to go. Barcelona Cathedral. Oh, it's just absolutely fabulous, and of course it was never destroyed and all that. Although I think it's later anyway. But
it's a later time period, but not by much.
Things, and you've literally got to put your camera through to get a photograph. But the decoration. And that's what this would have been like. They would have had these different chapels, but they would have been very basic.
Very plain.
They wouldn't have given them the adornment anyway. That's why they were shoved down here.
Exactly.
They were up there. Because they didn't want these distracted. Get in, get your service, get out and get into the field. Whereas up there, they were doing the 8 hours, and by then it's you're literate, so you can hold your attention a bit longer. So they were down there.
And also they would have come from better families.
Yes.
So would have had not only a better education, but would have been considered too good to work the land.
Yes, yes. So you can see that's where the stalls were here.
Yeah, these are all the store points, aren't they? These are where they would have all sat behind these.
In between these pillars, and behind them would have been all the separate and then there would have been a frieze across the back there. And then through there in the other half, they would have had their services. So they must have had to time them.
Yeah.
So these didn't interrupt and overwhelm their services.
Yeah.
Because they were longer.
Yeah. You found a blackberry tree, have you?
We've got loads.
So this is the refectory. So where the monks gathered to eat. And you'd have to eat in silence while listening to a reading delivered from the pulpit. The large recess that's in the wall there. You can just about see it on the right hand side. And the community sat around the edges of the room at tables supported by stone legs set into the floor. And the monks' diet was largely vegetarian. The main hot food was a thick soup made from beans and veg, and bread and ale were also staples. And they had fish, eggs and cheese allowed on special occasions. And before entering the refectory, the monks washed in the laver, which were long water troughs in the large recesses on either side of the floor. So they'd have a little wash in them before eating. And they were communal washing basins. They'd all share the same water. Lovely jubbly. A lot of the monks spent their time, and it would be doing various activities such as copying manuscripts, mending clothes. Fragments of the stone roof has survived and they're in the museum. They had lamps hung from the ceiling with hooks. The heating in the winter months was provided with that large fireplace over there that I showed you on the way into the room. And then obviously there was a latrine, a toilet, which was flushed by the abbey's main drain. And above this room was actually the dormitory. And in the mid-12th century, 140 monks slept up there on mattresses in a huge open room. So this room that I'm in right now was actually the infirmary, and it was built in the 1150s when Elred was actually the abbot here himself. And obviously he got very ill in the later years of his life. It was used as the abbot's house, so that's where the abbot always lived, and he was directly opposite the infirmary where he spent most of his time. And above the abbey door is the only figurative sculpture that's still in its original place here, and it was about the Annunciation to the Virgin, which is what this whole abbey was dedicated to. What's that up there? Not weathered great, but you can still make it out to a degree. I'll zoom in.